Good morning, friends. Now, in this presentation, we are going to discuss about the one of the SHE legislation, Act and Rule, that is Explosive Act 1884 and Explosive Rule 1983. So, from the Act itself, everybody thinking about what exactly the explosive is. So, this may be in your mind that these are the different explosive substances which is not a daily life substances. Sometimes it is required to explode, that is also called as controlled explosion. So for the demolition of the old buildings, for the demolition of some of the chimneys, cooling towers, or some of the companies building. So we required the explosion, but that is controlled explosion. Now the secondary thing is in the ordnance factory, in the military, and in the other governmental sector, these explosive substances are used. So that may be the case of war, that may be the case of some other application, but that explosive substances can be used with the help of government initiatives. And some other applications of this explosive is in daily life. If you are observing in the farming sector, in the agricultural sector, we require these controlled explosive again like gelatin to for the digging purpose, for creating or preparing a well for water. So for digging, for cracking, for cutting some stones, we can use these types of explosives. So these are the different explosive you can know from this daily life or from the military, ordnance or government sectors. And this is the class label. You know about this class label, that is from the UN classification, United Nations classification, and the symbol is used for this explosive. Now, some are also recalling this danger sign, and normally it is in white and red when it is about the explosive as well as the flammable or highly flammable substances. So, what exactly these explosives are, how to use this explosive, how to manufacture this explosive, how to sell this explosive, and where from we got the license to store this explosive, to manufacture this explosive, to sell this explosive, etc. All these things, all these guidelines are given in the Explosive Act. And then how to implement these guidelines that is given in the explosive rules for the state government. So let us discuss one by one what exactly the Explosive Act consists of. Now it is the fact that it is not possible to discuss each and every section from the Act and each and every rule from the explosive rule in a single presentation, but I will focus some of the sections, some of the rules in this presentation. So this Act that is created or prepared in the 1884 was enacted from 26 to 1884 and it came into force from 1/7/1884. It extends to the whole of India. So already we have discussed that when we are talking about the Act, it is created and prepared and implemented for the central government, that is at national level. So it is extended to the whole of India. It has 18 sections and we will go through these 18 sections. That is short title, the local extent, then commencement, then repealed. Now this third section is cancelled. Then fourth one is definition. Then power to make rule as to licensings of the manufacture, possession, use, sale, transport, and importation of explosive. So this is one of the important section where these powers are given to that particular person or the organizations for getting the license, and this license can be used to manufacture, to possess, to use, to sell, transport, to import these explosives. Then under this fifth section, 5A is there, persons already in business in respect of certain explosives to carry out such business without license for a central certain period. So if someone or some organizations or some person is already in that business of explosive for selling, transporting or importing, then that certain explosive to carry out the such business without license. So that is the exceptional case. If it is already running, then there is no license requirement. Sixth one is power for central government to prohibit the manufacture, possession or importation of specially dangerous explosives. So when we are talking about this explosive, there are different types of substances or chemical substances given under the definitions under section 4, but it is specific that dangerous explosives are also mentioned. So it is the power of central government only to prohibit these manufacturing, possession or the importations. Then 6A, prohibition of manufacture, possession, sale or transport of explosive by young persons and certain other persons. So it is in normally in all the act it is given that if the age is below the 18, then you are not permitted to work in that prohibited area. And even in some of the cases, especially when we are talking about the ordnance industry, when we are talking about the research and development laboratories, which is under the central government, especially for the manufacturing, for modification or rectification of some of these explosive, then the other persons, the visitors are not allowed in that area. So special permission from the central government authority or representative is required to visit that particular lab or that industry. Then grant of licenses. So how to apply for the licenses, what are the provisions, what are the minimum requirement for getting these licenses, all these things are given into this 6B. And if some conditions are not satisfied by the applicant, then that license can be rejected by that authority that is given under this 6C. Then 6D, licensing authority competent to impose conditions in addition to prescribed conditions. So there are some specific conditions, some exceptional cases which is mentioned in the 6D other than the minimum requirement for the license. Then 6E, variation, suspension and revocation of licenses. So if you want to extend the period of license, if you want to suspend that license due to some invalid reasons or some other reasons, or if you want to revocate these licenses, then all these conditions are given under this section 6E. Then 6F, that appeals. If the license is going to suspend by that authority, and if you are not satisfied with the causes or the reasons mentioned in that suspension letter, then you can go for the appeal. That is given under the 6F. Then 7th, power to make rules, conferring powers of inspection, search, seizure, detention and removal. So all these powers for conferring these powers of inspections. So if someone or some organizations getting the license and they are started that manufacturing, storage or assembling of some of the parts, etc., then the central government are having the powers to represent some persons for the inspection. So they have to check whether all these manufacturing, all these storage, all these packing, all these transportations, all these things are done or conducting all these things in the prescribed manner. So whatever the rules and regulations guidance is given under this Explosive Act and Rule, whether they are following all these guidelines or not. So for that purpose, central government has the powers to ask some representative to inspect that particular industrial area. That may be a storage, that may be a manufacturing, that may be a packaging unit, that may be a transportation. Then in case if in that area if the accident is occur, then we have to give the notice of accident which is given under the section 8. Then the inquiry into accidents, if you convey or communicate that this accident is happened and the accident type is this one and that accident affects on these persons, accident affects on this material and this much of damage is happened and the tentative reason may be this one. So after that, the controller of explosive and DISH and some central government or state government agencies may come into that particular area where the accident is occur and they can inquire to the persons which are responsible, the persons which are involved in that accidents, or the supervisors and the workers which are nearby to that particular department or the section where the accident is occur. So all the inquiry will be done as per the norms. Then 9A is inquiry into more serious accidents. If the accident is of fatal type, if the accident is of major accident hazard type, then that is the serious accident case. So if the accident is very serious, because we are talking about the explosive, so explosive is the major accident case. So in that case, the more fatalities may be the chances into that area. Then section 10 is related to the forfeiture of this explosive. 11 is related to the distress of aircraft or vessels. Then 12 is related to the abandonment and attempts. Then 13 is related to the power to arrest without warrant persons committing to the dangerous offences. Whatever the guidelines provided by this act and explaining that rule, if it is not going to follow, then these control of explosive and their representatives are having the power to give the warrant, or without warrant they can arrest that persons if he or she is committing the dangerous offences. Then 14 is related to the saving and power to exempt, and 15 is related to the Saving of Arms Act 1959. 16 is related to the saving as a liability under other law. Then extension of definitions of explosive to the other explosive substances. Now the explosive is defined in this act and rule, and explosive substances or the other explosive substances is defined in other rule. Then 17A is related to the power to delegate, and 18 is related to the procedure for making publication and confirmation of these rules. Now in this presentation we are going to focus only the act's salient features. After 1884 this act is amended in many times, but we are focusing only the points when the students or the persons are not knowing about anything about this explosive act. So for that person and students only, I am going to give you a basic idea where from this explosive act is started. For further details, you can go through the various amendments under this act and then explosive rules. So the salient features, what exactly the objective of this explosive act? The objective of this explosive act to regulate the manufacture, possession, use, sale, transport, import and export of the explosive. So that is the main objective. So we have to control, we have to regulate, we have to monitor this manufacturing, purchasing, using, transporting, storage, importing, exports of these explosives. Then explosive is defined in the section 4D. That means gunpowder, nitroglycerin, nitroglycol, gun cotton, dinitrotoluene, then picric acid, dinitrophenol, then trinitroresorcinol, symphonic acid, that is cyclotrimethylene trinitroamine, then pentaethylene tetranitrate, then tetryl nitroguanide, then lead acid, lead siphonate, fulminate of mercury or any other metal, diazo dinitrophenol, colored fires or any other substances, whether a single chemical compound or a mixture of substance, whether a solid, whether a liquid, whether a gaseous, whatever it may be. But if that is mentioned under these, and if these chemical substances are used, manufacture or transport, import, export from the industry, then it is under the Explosive Act because it is defined in this explosive. So whatever the application may be, so sometimes we think that these chemicals or these explosives are not under that, but you can understand fireworks, fuses, rockets, then percussion caps, detonators, cartridges, ammunition of all the descriptions and every adaptation or preparation of as an explosive is defined in this clause. So whatever the detonators, whatever the ammunitions, whatever the fireworks, all these things are under the Explosive Act, and the explosive definition is given under this section 14. If you observe the definition of this explosive and the examples of the chemical substances of this explosive, then you can find that nitrogen derivatives are the main concern when we are talking about the explosive. So in most of the compounds, there are nitro compounds. You can observe this nitroglycerin, nitroglycol, then dinitrotoluene, then dinitrophenol, then trinitro. So most of the explosive composed of the nitrogen as a compound or nitrogen derivatives. Then aircraft carriage and vessels are also defined in this section. The main provision of this act: a person below the age of 18 years, offender of violence or moral turpitude, who is ordered to keep peace or good behavior or whose license is cancelled for any offense under this act, can't manufacture, sell, transport, import or export, deliver or dispatch or possess any explosive defined or notified. So with reference to 6A, it is clearly mentioned that if the person is below the 18 years, if the person is the offender, if the person's license is cancelled due to some offenses, due to some invalid points or rejections by that authority, then he is not allowed for manufacture, sale, transport, import or export of this explosive. That is one of the main provision. Second one is license can be granted, refused, varied, suspended, revoked and conditions can be imposed with reference to the 6B to 6E. So we have already listed out these 6B to 6E. Appeal is also already listed in the 6F. Then it is related to the license. Then the central government has power to make rules regarding the inspection, search, seizure, detention and removal. So we have already discussed about this section 7, and under section 8 notice of accident and its inquiry. Under section 9 central government can inquire into more serious accident under section 9A. With reference to section 10, the explosive with receptacle shall be fortified by the court after convictions. With reference to section 12, abetment and attempt to commit offense under this act and rule is punishable. And with reference to section 13, any person found committing any offense punishable under this act can be arrested without the warrant. And under section 17A, central government can delegate its power to the state government or an officer. So this is one of the main provision again. The central government is the main authority under this Explosive Act, and the controller of explosive is the main designation for this Explosive Act. But if the situation or the condition is like that central government feels that you have to delegate its power to the state government representative, then the state government representative can act as a central government representative, as an officer, and they can inspect, they can carry some accident or incident investigations, or they can reject these licenses, or they can give some inputs to the main controller of explosive, right? So these are the different provisions or the main provisions under this Explosive Act 1884, right? So this is a brief idea regarding this Explosive Act 1884. Now, under this act, the rules are made with the help of these guidelines. These are the different rules that is called as explosive rule. So these rules are prepared in 1983. So again, I'm discussing only the main rules or the salient features of this explosive rule. Under section 5 and 7 of this Explosive Act 1884, these rules were published in 1983. They have 10 chapters, 186 rules, 8 schedules, 40 forms under Schedule 5, and 8 specifications under Schedule 7. So that is the idea where from you can understand these are the numbers of rules. So 186 rules discussion is impossible in a single presentations. So there are 8 schedules, 40 forms, and there are different schedules and some specification guidelines under the 2 schedules. So we have to at least have the idea how these rules are made, what are their objectives, and what is the use of these rules to implement the guidelines for the manufacturing, storage, import, exports, sale, etc. The definition, the main thing I have mentioned initially, CCE, the Chief Controller of Explosive, is the main authority under this explosive rule. He can recognize a competent person by giving him a certificate of competency. Prohibited explosive mean under section 6. Authorized explosive mean those published by the government, and permitted explosive mean those permitted by the DGMS, that is Director General Mines of Mine Safety, to be used in the underground coal mines. So when explosive substances are used for the coal mines or in the mine industry, then that permission is given by the Director General of Mine Safety. And the other explosive which is not used in the coal mines are permitted by the government, and all these authority or the power is given to the Chief Controller of Explosive. So this is the Chief Controller of Explosive is the main authority, is the main competent person for this explosive. And when we are talking about the explosive which is used in the coal mines, then the main person is Director General of Mine Safety. Then detonator, safety cartridge, safety fuse, safety zone, etc. are defined under this rule. Magazine means a building to store more than 5 kg of explosive and specially constructed as approved by the CC. So magazine is one of the substance, and all these other substances are also defined under these explosive rules. So again, it is clearly mentioned that all these things are approved by the CCE only, that is Chief Controller of Explosive. Protected works include a dwelling house, college, schools, hospitals, theater, factory, storage of hazardous substances, public road, railway, waterways, dams, reservoirs, high tension power lines, etc. So all these things should be protected from all these types of explosive which is defined under this explosive rule. Safety zone is a distance required between such protected work and a licensed factory, magazine, or storehouse. So before giving the license, before approval, the application of the applicant, the CC or their representative is going to inspect that area where the person is going to, or the applicant is going to store that explosive, manufacture that explosive, then they can import or export that explosive. So the protection of all these things is the first priority, and by keeping a safe distance, they can give the license approval. Safety distance is the main thing to protect all these hospitals, buildings, schools, etc. And for that purpose, these guidelines are given. Explosive are divided into 4 categories. So with reference to this explosive rule, there are 4 categories of this explosive according to the risk which they present initiated, namely X, Y, Z and ZZ. So what does the X category means? The explosive which have a fire or a slight explosion risk. So if the explosive is having a fire risk or a slight explosion risk or both, but the effect of which will be local. So if the explosive is having a lower risk, if the after explosion of these substances, if it is impacted only on the local region, then it is called as X category explosive. If it is Y category, these explosive which have mass fire risk. Now here only fire risk. Now it is mass fire risk, means more quantity and more impact, or a moderate explosion risk but not the risk of mass explosion. So here if you compare this X and Y, here only fire, now here it is a mass fire risk, here slight explosion, now it is a moderate explosion risk. But if it is not the case of mass explosion, then you can call these explosive as a Y category explosive. Then Z category explosive, which have a mass explosion risk and major missile effect, then these explosives are called as Z. So obviously here the more dangerous substances or more dangerous explosive substances are used, where after the explosion the mass explosion is the outcome. Then ZZ category, those explosives which have mass explosion risk and minor missile effect, that is ZZ. So these are the 4 categories of these explosive substances with reference to this rule X, Y, Z and ZZ. If any question arises as to whether any explosive belongs to category X, Y, Z or ZZ, the matter shall be referred to the CCE, Chief Controller of Explosive. Then that competent person who is having the knowledge or the expertise in that area, he can guide you about the category of that particular explosive. If it is a dilemma or confused state, whether the category of that explosive is X, Y, Z or ZZ. Then the general provision with reference to the chapter 2, that is from rule number 5 to 20, import, export, transport, manufacture, process, use or sale of unauthorized explosive is prohibited. So all these rules are given under the general provisions title, that is under chapter 2, that rule is number 5. So testing and trial are permitted in a licensed factory. Then with reference to rule 6, application for authorization of explosive is necessary. Particulars are prescribed for the submission. A sample shall be sent as per the instruction from controller of explosive. So applications and applications contents are given under this rule number 6. Then under this rule 6, the test which is described, the test prescribed are physical properties including consistency, reaction, tendency to absorb moisture, segregation of the constituents, exudation, behavior at low temperature, specific gravity, etc. So we have to find out first what exactly the physical properties of all these explosive substances, because the weather conditions, from the weather condition, CCE may permit you in some of the areas and CC may not permit you in a specific area for the same condition because the moisture, the humidity, the temperature conditions are different at different regions in India. Then the chemical composition, percentage and quality of ingredients. So especially when we are talking about the explosive, lower explosive limit, higher explosive limit, and the concentration range is the main property. Then stability, effect of environmental conditions which would produce spontaneous ignition or variation in sensitiveness. So sometimes if the temperature is more, sometimes if the humidity is less, then some of the chemicals react in that way. That is a spontaneous ignition. The ignition characteristics, that may be a ignition point, behavior, liability to spontaneous ignitions. So continuous ignition, that is spontaneous ignition. If it is happen, then that explosive is dangerous. Mechanical sensitiveness to friction and impact. So some explosive are having the characteristics that due to the friction, they may create a small spark, but that spark may be sufficient to ignite or explode that particular chemical. So we have to take care about this mechanical sensitiveness. Air gap sensitivity and transmission of detonation. So that is the case when the detonation work or detonation operation is carried out. Velocity of detonating, then strength of determinations, all these are related to the detonation. Gases evolved upon explosions. So that is another case of air pollutions as well as that may impact or adverse impact on the health of the people who are surrounding that particular area where the explosion is occur. So after the explosion, the gases may form that depends on the characteristics and the structural formula of that particular explosive. Such other test specified by the CC and any other test required by the CC. So sometimes it happens that with respect to the practical issues, the experimental issues and some accidental histories, CC may recommend you a specific test other than it is prescribed in this rule number 6. So all the tests should be carried out with the help of the CC guidelines. Then delivery and dispatch under the license and not exceeding the quantity. So the quantities that may be in terms of kgs, that may be in terms of tons, all the quantities are clearly mentioned on your license that this much amount, this much quantity is permitted for you for the storage or for manufacture, for import, for export, for sale, for use, etc. So that is rule number 7. With reference to rule 8, packing as per the schedule H and after approval of the sample. So how to do the packing, how to avoid the weather conditions, adverse impact, then what exactly the label should be strict or attached on these packings. All these guidelines are given under this rule number 8. Marking of packages should mention the word explosive. So explosive wording is necessary, which is given under this rule number 9. So not required for the fireworks and safety fuse. Name of the authorized explosive, class number, division, safety distance category, names of manufacturer, consigner, consignee, net weight, and the letter V for permitted explosive. All things are should be mentioned on the packing labels. Then rule number 10 guides you regarding the weight of explosive shall not include the weight of the packing box. So without packing box, the weight of that explosive should be mentioned. Then rule number 11 is related to the competent person should be in charge of that operations. So competent person means the expert person in that particular field. The precautions in handling, floor should be checked, clean, swept before after use. The package should not be thrown, dropped, rolled, pulled, but shall be passed from hand to hand because there may be explosive substances which are having the mechanical sensitiveness and with the frictional resistance due to the frictions, due to the impact, there may be chances of explosion. So all the explosion or the explosive substances are transferred from hand to hand only. A slung package should be prevented from the fall, that is impact resistance. Then handling between the sunset and sunrise is the restricted unless proper lighting and guarding is provided. So that is the recommendation mainly for the area where a proper or sufficient lighting and guarding is not provided. So they can carry the handling of these explosive between the sunset and sunrise only. That is given under this rule number 13. Then rule number 14 gives you the idea regarding the 15 meter of an within the 15 meter of an explosive storage or its place of handling or transport, smoking, fires, lights and flammable substance or substance to cause fire and explosion such as acids, petroleum, calcium carbide, compressed gas shall not be allowed. So smoking, fires, transportation of these types of substances, all these things are not allowed within the 15 meter of the explosive storage. So whatever the substances are mentioned, all the substances are explosive or highly flammable substances. That is acid, petroleum products, calcium carbide, compressed gases, etc. Then no person will carry matchbox or matches, knives, fuses, iron or steel or wear shoes with iron nails. So all these things are related to the frictional resistance, which is the possibility of creating a spark or the ignition source and which may give a chances of explosion in that area. Then split explosive shall be safely destroyed, which is under rule 16. Then 17 gives you the idea regarding the employment of person below 18 years, intoxicated persons and persons of unsound mind is prohibited. So the physical as well as the psychological conditions should be also be checked before joining that person in that area. Precautions against danger from water, incompatible substances or exposure to sun or heat are necessary. So some explosive are having the characteristics that with contacting to the moisture, they can be more dangerous. That is called as highly reactive substances with water. And some substances are very sensitive to the temperature or the heat, and that heat can be taken from the direct sunlight. So all these precautions should be taken while storing these types of explosive, which is given under this rule number 18. Rule number 19 is related to the special precautions against accident, that may be a fire case and explosion. So when we are talking about the explosive, the two main hazards are fire hazards and explosion hazards. Then thefts, entry of unauthorized persons near explosives are necessary. So in each and every area where the explosives are going to handle, the unauthorized person's entry is always prohibited. So it is already mentioned in the rule number 19. Rule number 20 is related to the nitroglycerin or ethylene glycol dinitrate or explosive of class 5. Unauthorized, deteriorated or damaged explosive shall not be transported. So this is the specific rule when we are manufacturing, storing or using some of these explosive, and if some of the explosive are deteriorated, it means the quality of that or the design characteristics of that particular explosive or the quality of that particular explosive is going to reduce, that is deteriorations. So these deteriorated explosive may explode anytime, that we can't determine or judge when it is going to explode. So these deteriorated or damaged explosives shall not be transported without the approval of controller of explosive. So if you are having the license to transport this type of explosive, which is given by the controller of explosive, then only you can transfer these types of damaged or deteriorated explosive. Then about the import and export. So under this title, chapter 3 gives you the idea regarding the guidelines of this import and export of this explosive under rule 21 to 31. So rule number 21, that is related to the license. So license is necessary for importing and exporting these types of explosive through the sea, land or air. Then transport title, that is chapter 4, related to the rule number 32 to 86. So transportation is the main provision under this explosive rule, that is from 32 to 86. So 32 is related to the license necessary, 33 is related to the certain explosive can't be transported together, so that is nothing but the compatibility data. So some of the explosive substances is not compatible with other explosive substances. So these chemicals or these explosive substances should not transported in a single vehicle. So that should be transported in different vehicles. Then rule 34 is related to the safety certificate, which is required to transport that explosive substances with required or the sanctioned quantity. Rule 35 is related to the no transport of explosive with passengers. So passengers are not allowed while transporting these explosive. Only drivers and co-driver may be allowed for transporting these types of explosive. Then 38 to 45 gives the idea regarding the maximum weight as per the rule 36, loading and unloading procedures. So maximum weight or the maximum quantity which is permitted by the control of explosive is given under the rule 36, and the loading and unloading procedures is given under 38 to 45. So while loading and unloading, the main criteria or the main recommendation from the CC and explosive rule is that all these activities should be carried out between the sunrise and sunset. If it is not feasible or not possible to carry out all these activity between that, then you have to provide the sufficient light or the illumination and the guarding facility. Then rule number 46 to 61, that is related to the transport by water. How to transport these type of explosive, what are the precautionary measures, what are the permissions to transport this type of explosive by water. And the similar things when we are transporting these things through the rail, that is from 62 to 74, and from 75 to 86 the transportation of this explosive by road. In all the cases license is necessary. Then towing not allowed, four-wheel chocks to be carried all the times. In case of fire, traffic to be stopped 300 meters away, that is the safe distance in case of accident or explosion is happen or even fire is happen. Then accident to be reported, 2 fire extinguishers of 2 kg or more capacity required with road van. So minimum the portable fire extinguishers and 300-meter distance is the main criteria as a precautionary measure in case of accident. Now under the title manufacturing, chapter 5 gives you the idea and what exactly the precautionary measures or what are the rules under this manufacturing facility. That is from rule number 87 to 112. So rule number 87 gives you the guidelines regarding the license for the manufacturing. So these license necessary are the wording in each title. Why? Because for the manufacturing facility the license is necessary, for importing license is necessary, for exporting license is necessary, for storing license is necessary, for using license is necessary. So each and every facility is compulsory connected to the license applications. And with reference to rule 88, Where the license is not necessary, it is the exemptions cases, and these cases are mentioned under this 88. Then rule number 89 is related to the approval of control of explosive requirement. Then 90 is related to the factory should have wall or fencing 2-meter high to prevent unauthorized entry. So we have already discussed about this guarding facility. So 2-meter high guarding or fencing is necessary in that factory. Then 92 is related to the interior should be free from grit, iron or steel and kept clean. So we have already discussed about this frictional resistance and ignition source. Then 93 is related to the surrounding mount or blast wall is approved by the CC. Then 94 is related to the oiled cotton, rags, waste not allowed to avoid the spontaneous ignitions. So there are chances of ignitions, but to avoid the spontaneous or continuous ignition, we have to avoid these types of substances like oiled cotton or rags. Non-sparking tools made of wood, copper, brass or soft metal should be used. So we have to avoid this spark. We have to avoid this ignition source to avoid the explosion in that area. So for that purpose, it is a recommendation to use this non-sparking tools. Then rule 96 is related to the notice of maximum quantity of material and persons in a workroom to be exhibited in a process building. So it is related to the maximum quantity and person. 97 is related to the smoking prohibition. So we have already discussed about the smoking is prohibited in that area to avoid the explosion in the area. Then as per the IS 2309 and with reference to rule 98, lightning conductor yearly checking of earth resistance and its notices are necessary. So we have to again avoid the explosion or the fire chances by using these lightning conductors in case of lightning. Then rule 99 is related to the thunder. During thunder storms, work should be suspended and workers to be withdrawn to a safe place. Then rule 100 is related to the foreign matter in ingredients to be removed. So due to this foreign matter or the impurities which may be present in that explosive substances, that may act differently than the expectations, because we have already discussed that there may be two substances which are not compatible to each other. So the reaction may be different one. Then the 101 rule is related to the protection against fire, clothes without pockets. 102 is related to the residues will be quickly removed, and 103 is related to the before carrying out repairs to the building, explosive shall be removed. So even in some of the cases, small quantity of explosive substance may create a big problem. So for that purpose, we have to remove all the explosive substances before carrying out for the repairing purpose, for the maintaining purpose of these buildings. Then 104 is related to the employment of competent persons for process supervisions. 105 is related to the birth or fitness certificate is necessary for the age. So for as an age proof, the birth certificate or fitness certificate is necessary. 106 is related to the every vehicle, trolley or receptacle to carry explosive shall be free from iron, steel, etc. and be covered or closed. So everywhere this iron, steel is going to avoid for a frictional resistance, for a friction. Then 107 is related to the maintenance of building, plant and equipment should be regular and good. So we have to maintain all these facilities under this factory. 108 is related to the testing facilities as approved by CC. So we have already discussed all the testings prescribed by the controller of explosive or the chief controller of explosive, and whatever the necessary testings should be conducted, and if any other testings are recommended by this controller, then we have to conduct all these testings. 109 is related to the safe disposal of waste explosive. Then 1110 is 110 is related to the unsafe process to be stopped, and 112 is related to the up-to-date records to be maintained for at least 2 years. So we have to maintain all these records that we are using this raw material for manufacturing these things. We are using this process for manufacturing of this product. We are going to manufacture all these products in that quantity with that quality, and we have already transferred or transport these explosive from this place to this place with particular van, that is explosive van, and with all these precautionary measures. So all these things should be maintained by the factory manager with reference to this rule number 112. Then the title is possession, sale and use. So under this title, the chapter 6 is there and rule number 1132 to 153 is there. So 113 license necessary, 114 not necessary, exemptional cases. 115 is related to the use of licensed premises only. 116 is related to the protection from the lightning. 117 related to the thunderstorm. Then 118 to 120 related to the building to be kept clean. 119 maintenance of records. 121 related to the hazardous articles not to be carried out. 122 is related to the premises to be kept locked. 123 is related to the security guards for round the clock. 124 is related to the repacking or opening of the safe place and safe distance. 125 is related to the explosive not to be kept in damaged boxes. 126 is related to the no storage exceeding license quantity. 129 is related to the magazine storage in mode A or B as specified in schedule 7. 131 is related to the surrounded by mount, and 132 is related to the surrounded and ground floor only. 134 is related to the storehouse of sound construction. 135 is related to the type of premises, ground level minimum floor area 9 meters square, separate entry, separate exit. 136 related to the fireworks precautions. 137 related to the safety distances, that is 15 meter or more from the storage of explosive, flammable, hazardous material. 138 is related to the no sale of other articles. So many of the things are repeated, many of the contents are repeated, but it is specially for the possession, sale and use only. In the previous case, that was for the manufacturing. In the previous case, that for the import and exports. So similar guidelines is for the possession of that explosive, sale for the explosive and use for the explosive. So for the use of explosive, 144 is related to the competent person to be employed. 145 is related to the restrictions on preparation of charges. 146 is related to the restrictions to carry at the blasting site. 147 is related to the examination before use. 148 is related to the precautions at site. 149 is related to the warning procedures. 150 is related to the precautions while firing. 151 is related to the against stray currents. 152 is related to the fire or accident. So all these things should be nothing but the precautionary measures while using this explosive. So we have to take care about the warning symbols and signs. Then we have to take care about some of the activities before using this explosive. We have to give the guidance. We have to take the guidance from the competent person or the controller of explosive, etc. So all these things are given under this rule number 113 to 153. The blasting operations under the Mines Act 1952 are allowed. So if it is the activity is related to the Mine Act, which is permitted from this Mines Act 1952, then the blasting or the other operations can be carried out with the help of this act or permission. Then the license title, that is chapter 7, rule number 154 to 174. Then fees regarding the license of fees or the appeal or the extension of the license or renovation, etc. All these fees are given under this chapter 8, rule 175 to 177. Then regarding the power of central government, power of state government, power of the controller of explosive, etc. All these things are given under this chapter 9. Whatever the penalties can be given to the offender, to the persons whose license can be cancelled, etc. All these things are given under this rule number 178 to 181. Then the accident and inquiries related guidelines are given under this chapter 10 from rule number 182 to 186. So these are the 186 rules, right? So 182 is related to the notice forthwith to the CC Nagpur, C under jurisdiction and nearest police station. So the main controlling authority or the main competent person is chief controller of explosive, which is placed at Nagpur. Then procedures at courts of inquiry, rule number 183. 184 is related to the inquiry by a district magistrate or a police commissioner. Then 185 is related to the inquiry into more serious accidents. And these are the different 186 rules under this explosive rule 1983. Then there are some schedules. Schedule 1 with reference to rule 3, there are different classes of this explosive. That is class 1 gunpowder, class 2 nitrate mixture, class 3 nitro compound, class 4 chlorate mixture, class 5 fulminate, class 6 ammunitions, class 7 fireworks, class 8 liquid oxygen explosive. So these are the different classes under this schedule 1. Then the different schedules other than first one is schedule 2 with reference to rule 8, that is regarding the packing of explosive. Then schedule 3 with reference to rule 21, that is method of testing. Schedule 4 with reference to 155 rule, licensing authority. Schedule 5 from forms 1 to 40. Then in schedule 6, explosive permitted to be imported and transported by air. Then schedule 7 is related to the specifications, that is from 5.1 road van to carry explosive, 5.2 motor truck together with compressor unit, then some metal cases for conveyance of explosive, then some magazine storage or mode A and B, some storehouses, compressor mounted motor truck or tractor. So all these guidelines are given under this schedule 7 with specifications. Schedule 8 is related to the safety distances. So these are the different schedules and the detailed guidelines are given with reference to that rule and the title or respective title of that schedule. Thank you. So these are the different 186 rules under these explosive rule 8 schedules, and in the Explosive Act 1884 there are 18 sections. So for more details you can go through the different amendments in the acts and the rules. So that amendments may be in 2008, then 9, then 11, then 18 and 19 also. Thank you.